Kamala Harris is such a phony baloney. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. I usually say Soapbox After Dark, so we'll go with that. And yeah, Kamala Harris is such a phony baloney. So we are in somewhat of a new era. Elizabeth Warren was the number third person in our Democratic debate, but now that person is Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris has been taking her victory lap from decapitating one Joe Biden in that last debate, where she essentially needed votes that Joe Biden was getting, or you can say polling numbers at this point because the votes haven't been taken. And she, with magnificent debate prep, put a knife into Joe Biden in order to carve those votes out. And whatever you want to think of Kamala Harris herself, maybe even as a candidate, it worked. She went from number 5, almost in irrelevance, to firm number 3. Now, I didn't begrudge her from that. She did what she had to do. I mean, after all, these guys are in a political contest, and they were in a debate. And I wish one Mr. Bernie Sanders was staring at the debate prep that Kamala Harris had, because it was done magnificently well. However, the catch here that you found out on day number 2 after that debate was that Kamala Harris's position on busing is almost equivalent to Joe Biden's position. The exact same position that she eviscerated Joe Biden for holding. Yeah. The level of hypocrisy is, breathtaking. It's awesome. It's politics. Yes, you can hit her and say, wait a minute, she's being a hypocrite, but she had an objective. Her goal is to become president of the United States. And to become president, she has to get through the primary. In order to get through the primary, she has to put a knife in whoever is above her and pull herself up. And that person just so happens to be one Mr. Joe Biden. She did what she was supposed to do. However, it gets to be a point where it's like, okay, the hypocrisy becomes a little too much. It becomes a little too thick. She's sitting on The View, and she's having a conversation with the people on The View, and they're talking about Epstein. And this leads to Acosta, because Acosta is an easy way to hit Donald Trump. Now, in case you were in a closet somewhere, this is Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is a pedophile. And Jeffrey Epstein was just busted again for pedophilia, in which case they found all sorts of images and everything else. But beyond that, him being a billionaire and having a pedophilia island. They call it pedophile island. In fact, he has 2 islands. This case is getting such attention because Jeffrey Epstein is friends with all sorts of people in the political space and the media space. Trump, Clinton, Chris Tucker, like all sorts of people are potentially on the line that may be involved in this particular issue. Epstein, however, has just got busted again. And this case is going from issues taking place in Florida and New York. Apparently, there have been people that he's been using to go and entice girls in order to get other girls. They're calling it a pedophile ring at this point. Yes, this case gets pretty deep and is pretty depraved. And yeah, there are apparently plenty of media and, again, political people that may be involved in this particular issue, meaning all sorts of people have been connected to this guy. Donald Trump put out a tweet early on saying, or not a tweet, but there was a quote from Donald Trump saying, yeah, great guy. They say he loves beautiful women as much as I do, and he likes them on the young side. And the question becomes, who knew? Who knew? This is kind of the Weinstein question. Are you telling me that none of these people who are hanging around this guy knew that this was taking place? It's possible that nobody knew, but who knew? Who knew? And if Donald Trump is saying that, Donald Trump, no. Now, everyone has been distancing themselves from Epstein, and you can understand why. But the connection here is Acosta. Now, Acosta is Trump's labor secretary. And as Trump's labor secretary, you can understand there's this problem now of Acosta gave this guy a soft prosecution. Now, Acosta says this was the best thing that I could do. It's the best I could get. But Acosta didn't even inform the witnesses, the children, the people who were the victims of Epstein, that he was doing this secret prosecution. That's illegal. That's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. And beyond that being illegal, they are going after Epstein now, where the prosecutor comes out and says, if anybody knows anything else and has any information that you want to give us, call this number. But the question becomes, why did Acosta give this guy, who has now been accused of having a prosecution ring, such a soft prosecution? Why did you let this guy off the hook on such a case in this way? Acosta's story is being contested. But regardless of Acosta's story being contested about the best that they could do, Acosta has just resigned. Listen to Kamala Harris. I want you to hear Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is slamming Acosta, saying Acosta should have gotten a better prosecution, and that Acosta's excuses for not getting a better prosecution are weak at best. Now, I agree with her assessment here. They are weak at best. I mean, the guy was running a child prostitution, pedophilia ring, for God's sake. And Acosta let the guy off the hook with, I think it was like a 13 months in prison, the majority of which was a work release, and him being registered as a pedophile. He's running a child pedophilia ring. He's up for 45 years in prison, if I'm not mistaken, for each of the cases. And there are a slew of cases. Listen to Kamala Harris, though. She's pretty boisterous in saying what she would and wouldn't have done in this case, dealing with Jeffrey Epstein.
The thing that I found so troubling, disheartening, and really unbelievable was the way that Acosta has described the challenge he had, because it's like saying it's really difficult to make an omelet. Well, then get out the kitchen if you don't know how to cook.
Right.
Right? If you don't know how to do your job, you shouldn't be in the position. Don't take the fame and glory that comes with the position if you don't know how to do the work in the job. And we're talking about children.
Yeah. Every day.
You know, and here's the thing, when I would also prosecute these cases, one of the things I would say is that, look, any of us who has raised a daughter or a girl, we know that and I'm just going to be explicit, when they hit puberty, they start to develop hips and breasts, right?
All right. Now, the rest of this gets into the kind of emotional stuff. It's like, well, you know, when you're raising a daughter and the daughter is hips and breasts and you got to protect your daughter. Fair enough, yes. I think any parent will say that. I'm not a parent, but I think any parent will say you got to protect either your daughter or your kid or your son or whoever. You got to protect him. You don't want your kid touched inappropriately in this way. A few points. It is a low bar to say that they hit Epstein on this, and by definition hit Acosta, because I think anybody looking at this case, most people look at this case, say there's no reason that Acosta, doing his job, should have let the guy off the hook. That's the first point. Second point, I also think anybody looking at this case would say it is also a low bar to say, yes, we don't want our kids touched. So again, gold star on that point. Problem here is that Kamala Harris also has on her record not prosecuting or doing soft prosecutions. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. Now, Steve Mnuchin, during his time at One West Bank, Kamala Harris hasn't explained why she didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin. Now, Steve Mnuchin, while he was at One West Bank, they were responsible for all sorts of foreclosures. Thousands. A memo was released that The Intercept actually got a hold of and made public that it was recommended prosecutions, civil prosecutions, but still they were recommending civil prosecutions. There were thousands upon thousands of people that were foreclosed upon illegally, pushed out of their homes. In some cases, the information was fraudulent. One of the cases was a robo thing where they had thousands of foreclosures done by robo signing. They were pushing people out of their homes. And during the mortgage foreclosure, where all of these people were all in default just because all of these people were losing jobs and everything else, they took this as an opportunity to knock people out of their homes. Fraud. Now, it's true that it's not touching children. It is true that it's not kids developing breasts at the age of 14 and being groped upon by Epstein. That is true. There's a different level of, you could say, horribleness. But I think it's also horrible for a person to be pushed out of their home, pushed out of their, ability to be able to find somewhere that's their own dwelling. I think it's somewhat of a big deal for people to be homeless. I think it's a big deal for people to have kids, or for them themselves not to be able to have somewhere where they can go to at the end of the day after a hard day's work. And if we're talking about during the mortgage crisis, there may be situations where people didn't even have work, and in their case was pushed out of their house. I think that is also a big deal. Now, whether you want to say one is a larger deal than the other, I think thousands of people being put into this dire straits in this way for the financial benefit of Muchin's bank. This gentleman, the guy who eventually became Trump's Treasury Secretary, is also a very big deal. And people are asking questions about why Kamala Harris did not prosecute Muchin. And Kamala Harris does not have an answer for this. Kamala Harris has never had an answer for this. The memo obtained by The Intercept alleges that OneWest rushed delinquent homeowners out of their homes by violating notices prior to the waiting statutes, illegally backdated key documents, and effectively gamed foreclosure auctions. Muchin, the former CEO of OneWest, was already facing challenges in the upcoming Senate confirmation hearing on account of his bank's ruthless foreclosure practices, ranging from locking out homeowners during Minneapolis blizzard to foreclosing on another over 27-cent payment shortfall. The person literally was delinquent by 27 cents and they kicked the person out of their house. The memo also raises questions about why California Attorney General Kamala Harris, who was sworn in to the U.S. Senate on Tuesday and who will soon have to vote on Muchin's appointment, why did her office close the case, deciding not to conduct a full investigation of a national bank's misconduct and provide a public accounting of what happened, as her own investigators had urged? The memo is essentially her investigators saying, look, there are thousands of cases of widespread fraud where they were knocking people out of their homes. We need to investigate and potentially prosecute. And Kamala Harris closed the case. To the benefit of Kamala Harris, Muchin gave her a campaign donation. Isn't that awesome? Gave her a campaign donation at the end of it to boot. I don't know if he was doing that just kind of a thank you for not putting me in prison, or for the very least for not foreclosing or for not investigating my bank, or if it was just done for political purposes of, I'm just going to make you look bad by giving you a donation. I don't really care. You should have prosecuted. And in the same way, you are making this argument on The View, being pretty full of yourself. And again, it's not even so much that I disagree with your argument. More so, I agree with your argument. I agree with your argument so much so that I'm agreeing with your argument in saying that you, too, should have prosecuted Muchin when you had the opportunity to do so. And there were thousands of people, thousands, who were standing by the side wondering why you did not. No, again, it is not filling up little girls. But I would wager to you that the horribleness of losing your house whether you want to say is as bad, worse, just as bad, it is pretty goddamn bad. It's amazing how when people are running for a presidential race, the level of hypocrisy is astonishing. Some candidates should make another ploy to come after Kamala's hypocrisy again. You know, that would be pretty cool. When Tulsi Gabbard went after Kamala Harris, I disagree with Tulsi Gabbard because ultimately Kamala Harris had a point. I mean, if you're hitting Joe Biden, not necessarily for being racist, but more so for using racist in your note of civility, that's a fair thing to hit him with, especially if you're running in a Democratic primary and 90% of blacks vote Democrat when they do vote. Well, yeah, him using racism in this kind of way is somewhat problematic. It's politically tone deaf. It's racially insensitive. You should hit her. Now, the fact that has pretty much the same position as Joe Biden, yeah, you know, you could overlook that in the sense of a debate when Joe Biden can't bring that up because no one knew that until Kamala Harris brought that up as a point of contention within the context of the debate. Now, if somebody hits Kamala Harris on this notion of, look, you had the same position as Joe Biden, first point. And in this case, you should have went after Steve Mnuchin when you had the opportunity, and he would have never been able to be Trump's Treasury Secretary. Now, don't get me wrong, they would have found somebody else just as degraded, just as horrible as Mnuchin to be Trump's Treasury Secretary. So don't misunderstand me. But he wouldn't have been able to be it. And there would have been some level of accountability for all of those thousands of people that lost their homes unfairly or were defrauded out of their homes. Shouldn't they get justice? In the same way that Kamala Harris is saying those little girls should have got justice, shouldn't these people also have gotten justice? Why didn't you prosecute? It is a fair question that should be asked. It's a fair question. It is a completely fair question. Depraved, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. All right, I'm going to end this. I have a few more videos that I'm going to do. I am up, so might as well do the news. When real men can't sleep, real men do the news. My wife is not here. She's with her nieces and nephews for the night, so it's just me and you and the soapbox. Thanks all. Bye-bye.